let's just talk about what you remember about the final season. We'll just talk about any individual games, student athletes that kind of stepped out of the shadow of some guys who anticipated to have good years, and let's just talk about 2002.
Well, it was actually it's kind of a disappointing year the way it ended up. We'd beaten what people said was the best team in Michigan, where with Lamar Woodley and Saginaw, that group, they'd had a string of shutouts, and we put over 40 up on them. We beat what turned out to be the Indiana State champs, hung over 30 on Dick Dullahan's Giants down at Ben Davis. So, we obviously did not think our season was going to end. This is kind of a strange disappointment, but I only had 2 games, probably my whole career, where I didn't have something planned to talk to the team, to talk about, and I was not ready for that season to end, and I wished I could have had that team back just to talk to them for about 10 minutes after the game, because I didn't really have anything significant or important to say, I don't think, after that. I mean, it was kind of stunning, and I'll tell you one thing that I probably would, I don't really want to talk about too much, but it's the way that game ended. First of all, we could have, Penn High could have ended the parochial debate for all time. They could have ended the MIC debate for all time. We won the state 95, 96, 97. 98, we got beat 9-7 in the semi-state. We missed a field goal late. 99 and 2000, we were back down the dome. That's 7. And 2001, we end up getting beat in overtime by the dome team. In 2002, we were, like I say, undefeated, had beaten the state champ, 2 states, and we could have been there. That had been like 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. Then Corey got down his first year or two. We very easily could have been the 5A dome team from the north for 9 straight years. I mean, it's not even a pipe game. I mean, it could have very easily happened. And nobody would have been talking about the parochial schools. They'd be talking about, let's divide Penn into 2 schools. So I think that was kind of, as I think back, people have asked me what the biggest disappointment in my career. Well, I really never had a disappointment, but when you think of that, we could have been in the dome 9 straight years, and that'd have been something that probably nobody would ever beat. And it was very, very, it wasn't like I say, it wasn't a pipe dream, it was really close to happening. And the other thing that I would never want to have said in the book, but the next day we got beat like 16-15. And they kicked the long field goal, and the officials only had 1 man back, and he was under the goalpost. They didn't have anybody either. And there was a long time. They kicked it, and I had everybody from a principal at a school, a couple officials in the stands. I had so many people say that field goal. Oh, Bill Sharp called me up the next morning. He says, I don't want to make you feel any worse, but that field goal is no good. It was 5 feet wide. He said, nobody's in position to call it. And so, I mean, that kind of disappointed me to end that way. But it sounds like sour grapes I've never really told that to anybody, and I hope you delete this from the documentary film.
All right, now looking back on the season, if you look at the games game by game through their games, a win at home against Valpo, then on the road against Ben Davis, and you look at your league schedule, and then of course the loss at Valparaiso. When you look at those particular games, was there a game that jumped off the schedule as a marquee game? Obviously, you mentioned Saginaw and you mentioned Ben Davis, but anybody else, did anybody have a sensational performance throughout the course of that time?
Well, another thing, Goshen was undefeated when we played them, and that, you know, so that was a pretty nice win for us. And but you know, it was first of all, the thing you got to understand about Penn, which I believed in and Corey's continued, do not believe in the star system. I mean, we don't try to pad anybody's stats. We don't, that's why I can't remember Penn's last 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, I know I had a few, but I mean, it's just, anymore they've got depth and they rotate people. So I doubt if they're ever going to have, if Penn ever has another 1,000-yard rusher, it's going to be a super player, I'll tell you that. So it was, you know, so I don't really remember it. I remember almost everything in the team concept.
And during the course of the year, you had Tony West, Kyle Bayline, Frank DeWong, and Wade Imes, all of your four primary ball carriers. Tony averaged 8 yards, Kyle 8.5 yards, Frank DeWong 8.5 yards, and Wade Imes about 5 yards per rush. So you had good ball distribution there. It really wasn't a one-man gang, as you alluded to.
No, it wasn't, and we never wanted it to be. If we ever have anybody with outstanding stats, it's usually in a real close game because you're trying to get your the ball in the hands of your playmakers. But the only thing, I mean, just kind of, and it's really unfair to say that team, it was disappointing that we didn't get to the Dome, but it wasn't the team's fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just one of those things that happened, and it was just a little disappointing we didn't get there. We had a good team. We didn't have a lot of college prospects. I mean, I had one of our best defensive players, like 5'7", on the outside. Ryan Cole, and then our linebackers were short. I mean, we didn't have a lot, you know, we just had real good Penn-type kids playing that year.
One thing that jumped off the page, Chris, when you think about the 2002 team, was the fact that it only gave up 2 yards per rush during the season. In all, you only gave up 762 yards rushing. That is spectacular.
Well, it's about 5 times more than we gave up in 1983, though. But you're right. I mean, it was a good team, and I felt like, you know, we probably should have won it all that year.
Okay.